what we're going to talk about, it's something that we as teachers, we're a little bit afraid, like teacher evaluation. Oh, we sweat and we don't sleep for days when we know we're going to have our formal observation. I don't know if in Ukraine you have walkthroughs that your supervisor or your appraiser just come to the classroom 5-10 minutes and kind of look around what they are doing. And what I've been sharing with the basics of ELT is here in the States, when you have an observation, they don't ask you, what are you doing? They ask the students, so what are you doing today? And your students better be able to articulate what are you doing in the class. So stating stating your class objective and making the students understand where are we going with this, and having a lot of opportunities for the students to engage with the material. I don't want to go ahead. I get excited and I start talking about the topic. No, hold your horses, Lucia. But we're going to talk about the importance of classroom management. So I'm pretty sure in a few seconds, my dear friend, Jeff Fastnacht and Amanda, that they both work in the Bismarck Public School, is the biggest school district in the state of North Dakota that is super close to Canada. So it's called like nobody's business. They are going to be the ones, you're going to love their approach. They are very personable, very friendly. And we're just going to wait a few seconds. I'm pretty sure they have a tight schedule. You would not believe.
Well, you
Oh,
see,
here is he.
Amanda is already here. Yeah, and
Excellent.
just happy to see, Dr. Jeff Fastnacht. Well,
Yeah, he's with us.
so just before we give the floor to this wonderful team of presenters, once again, Lucia, thank you very much for everything you have done within these two projects. And just you remember, in our story lounge, we called each other family. We really became a family where the voice of everybody really mattered. And it was a surprise for me to hear that your slogan for the Basics of LT course was digging deeper. So, with Lucia, within these 2 months, we have learned how to dig deeper, how to swim faster, and actually how to dive again deeper. And along with this, we learned how to fish in the waters of English language teaching. So thank you very much, Lucia, and I won't keep you long. Well, our dear American professors, you're welcome. Please, the floor is yours. I stop sharing. You can share your screen.
I'm going to be the one sharing for them. Welcome, Jeff and Amanda. Happy to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be back with you, Dr. Shelley. It's good to see you again. Look at all the Ukrainian friends we have on today. Nice to see you again, Elena.
Nice to see you.
Others, I think. I'm trying to look at the small pictures. So,
Maybe
yeah.
you'll recognize some familiar faces.
So, yeah, I think if it's all right, if it's so okay, we'll just kind of get into it. And I'm sure a lot of it that Amanda and I have prepared for is probably a bunch of robust questions. So we'd like to just talk to you a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about evaluation and Amanda, because she is much more a versed professional on this. Just so you know, all the good answers will come from Amanda because this is what she does for her day job. So again, if you see the corresponding pictures, I'm Jeff. And I have the wonderful job of being the superintendent of Bismarck, which has around 14,000 students. And I love the distinction, Lucia, that what we're known for is being close to Canada. Of all the things we're known for. And Amanda is my learning design innovation director. She's in charge of teaching teachers, teaching our staff. She gets to raise and elevate our staff every single day. So if you can see her in the list, we'll let her join in just a little bit. Unless you want to say hi, Amanda. You want to say hi?
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm excited to answer questions and be a part of this experience.
All right, so next one, you're going to help me remember what I wrote on these wonderful slides, Lucia. So we've kind of newly adopted the Marzano model for evaluation, breaks out into these domains and not just these, but these domains of what we look for. And it's really aligned to how we teach. The model we teach with is aligned with how we evaluate. And I think that's something we've done over the last couple of years is lining that up. So when we're talking about teaching and learning, we're talking about what you do in the classroom, it aligns to what we actually are coaching and evaluating on. And I think I tuned in just a little early. You didn't notice I was on, Lucia, but I appreciate it's just about having conversations, right? I think as a young teacher, you were talking about being nervous about your evaluations. And I used to be very nervous when my principal would come in and fret about it. And I think over my 30 years in education, we've matured to now to say, this is about us working together. It's not about me giving you an evaluation and telling you. It's about me partnering with you side by side and working with our teachers to say, what do you need to work on? How do you want to get better? What do you want me to watch for in your classroom? And I love the connection to when I go into classrooms, I talk with kids. I say hi to teachers and I interact with them, but I like, what are you learning today? What's important today? What's the big thing that you're working on? And so see what they're saying about the classroom. It's really important. So you can find more about these, but again, I'm sure Amanda might reference back to the Marzano model as well. So next page. I gave you just one more, Lucia. There you go. I gave you a link to our evaluation handbook. It really is, you can look at it if you wish, but it gives all the high level information about the role of the teacher, the role of the evaluator, and what you follow. I've taken a couple snippets out of the book on the next couple slides, but it should just give you an idea of how we lay out the evaluation model in a positive framework. It's about some of those things you've seen already, but I would encourage you to look through it, and we'll talk about a couple of those. If you want to go back to the slides, I'll talk about a couple of the big elements. Yep. So again, as I said, this framework was based from Marzano's teacher evaluation model. It's really focused on competency-based instruction and getting kids to understand what your goal is, what your objective is in your classroom. And we're looking for those measurable outcomes, those measurable actions in your classroom. So, okay, next one. The levels that we identify that is when we go in and we look for something, I'm looking for something in an aspect of the model. I'm going to evaluate it on these 5 rubrics. I didn't see you using it all. Okay, that doesn't mean anything. It's just I didn't see it today in my drop-in. And I'll evaluate it really between you're just learning, you're beginning, you're just starting to learn that skill, to you're developing it, which a lot of teachers will be in developing. That's where a lot of people, you see that they're building the skill, they're using it or applying the skill. The last one is innovating. Innovating is really held for people who are teaching others. They're taking what that component and they're teaching their team, they're teaching their PLC, they're go out in the other environments helping support teachers. So I don't know about you. I always like to get A's on my work, even though I didn't get A's on my work. I was not that good a student, but we get in this model as a teacher sometimes where you have to get the A, you have to get the best grade. And part of the challenge of this model is saying, well, not everybody should be at innovating. That's held for the people who are actually taking it to the next level and supporting other teachers. It's okay to be developing. It's okay to be applying. And even for a new teacher, it might be okay to be beginning because you're just out of the college, you're just out of university. So it's being more comfortable with whatever that ranking is and not having to be always achieving those A's and 4 stars like sometimes teachers are. So
Jeff, can you clarify when you enter to the classroom and these levels, are you taking into consideration how the teacher is applying it or how the students are applying it?
I'm not a direct evaluator much anymore. I will
Mhm.
ask kids where they're at to help ascertain what the teachers have done, but it is about
Yeah.
identifying for the teacher. The teacher's skills in this area are beginning or they're developing, but I might get insights on that by talking to the students. So,
Yes. Excellent.
Lucia,
Uh-huh.
I tried to share my screen. Is everybody able to see the protocol in front of them?
Yeah, Amanda, by the way, yeah, we
Yeah.
can see that perfectly well, but if you wish, I can make you a host. So if you just
there you go.
be on the safe side. Yeah.
Perfect.
So if you can see in front of you to answer Lucia's question, when we go in as an evaluator, this is a screen that we may be looking at, and there'd be an example of the teacher instructional techniques, but there would also be examples of the student's desired effect. And so that question is hard to answer because as an evaluator, you are looking for the instructional strategies that the teacher's using while simultaneously looking to see if the desired effect is happening with students. And so this is the dashboard for one element that an evaluator would be looking at.
Why don't you try to reshare that because I don't see yours. You might not be resharing yet, Amanda.
Oh, darn it. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, guys.
That's okay. It's just Zoom.
Anything now?
No, yeah, I'd like
Nope.
Lucia go.
Should I
what
stop
I'll-
sharing mine?
No, if Dr. Fashman, if you want to keep going, I'll just snip this right into the chat and then they'll be able to see
Okay.
Okay,
that picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
go ahead, Lucia.
idea.
Next page.
Okay. Beautiful.
I better open the chat so I know what you're sharing.
Okay.
And this is, I just thought I'd give you like a little bit of the process. At the beginning of the year, we'll have a pre-assessment with teachers, kind of a self-reflection. That's the assessment yourself. It's not done by me. It's not done by administrator. It's your own view of what you're doing. They might create a professional growth plan. That kind of depends on the teacher of what they want to see. But that's a little bit unique. But then they're going to get into that observation time, coming in and getting evidence. I'm giving feedback. As Lucia said, these are just little walkthroughs or little drop-ins. Could be 8 to 10 of those happening in a year. And I would tell you as a principal, some of those might have lasted 15 minutes. Some of them might have only lasted 3 minutes. They might have just been come in. I see you introducing a lesson. That's all I need to see. And I'm back out and I have enough for the day. I think a lot of that is about the feedback then. It's not reflected on here, but it's about communicating with the teachers, sending that note, sending a little, here's what I saw today inside of however you document that. And then having a dialogue, talking to each other, like, here's what I was trying to do. Here's what I got accomplished. Here's what I saw. It's about that back and forth coaching. And then in our model, we do allow teachers during the year to present observable evidence. If they want to support what they're doing, they can give, maybe you didn't see this in the classroom, but here's the outcomes. Here's what the kid's end product was to show you what we were doing in the classroom. And then we do a mid-year check-in for new teachers that need a little extra coaching. That's required for us by law, that we have to do that mid-year check-in. Most are summative evaluations. So you dialogue, you coach all year, and then there's that formal document at the end, which we have to do. But hopefully, I think it's on the next page. I've always lived by the adage, go one forward, Lucia.
Okay. Hold there.
Sorry. Open, honest
This
conversation.
one.
If something is going to end up in the end product for me, you should have heard about it for months. We should have been talking about the good, the bad, and sometimes the ugly. If it is, we're going to talk about all that. So nothing on the end should surprise any of my educators. We're both teachers. We're both trying to make it. I don't know why we think we have to surprise people. I don't think that's fair. So
Yeah.
I'm going to let her take the
And-
rest of it. She can maybe go back to what's in the chat, but that's kind of my part, but I'll gladly take questions throughout. So.
Yes, and people, please feel free if you have any questions to voice it or do it in the chat. We are paying attention to the chat, but this is your chance to realize what is different. How can you make a better conversation with your administrator or the person that should evaluate you. I really like what Jeff says. There's no way that at the end of the school year, you just realize, oh, you're not proficient in this.
This is a curricular product that we use specific to classroom management. And so this is coming from Safe and Civil. This is a different body of research, but this organization really focuses on developing classroom management practices. So it will take you all the way down to, are you a high structure teacher? Are you a low structure teacher? How do you have kids turn in papers? How do you decide when a kid can go to the bathroom? How do you make sure that all kids are responding? It really breaks it down and explicitly helps a teacher grow their classroom management practices. Whereas Marzano, what we spoke about before, spends a little more time on the actual skill of instructional strategies. This product is focused specifically on building good classroom communities and making sure that you have expectations and rules and procedures in place.
Excellent. And
And
I love the fact that going so deep into, I love that you mentioned even turning papers and going to the bathroom. We could think, oh, this is so minutia that is not important. But at the end of the day, that determines so much. I had a background in ballet, so I always imagine almost like a dance in the classroom, that it flows so smoothly. And I love, if I can go back to the previous one, if I know how to do it. Um, when you see in your right hand side, so you have the standards, and then you have the conditions for learning. So there are two different things, but they have to be together. And I love the fact that you have to start by the standard. And I'm going to talk like teacher talk. So many teachers see in Pinterest such a cute activity, and they want to force like a standard to match, but they are more interested in the, oh, it's cute, it's fun, but where is the learning, right? So it doesn't have to be tedious or boring. Learning doesn't have to be like that, but by leading by the standard, then all can fall into place. Tell us a little bit more when you enter to a classroom and you see chaos or you see super silent. What is your perspective on those two scenarios, Jeff or Amanda?
Oh, I was going to add, I get to see some of those, and I will say, I think the first important thing is to not judge either one of those, because you don't know what's going on. I mean,
Yes.
both can be equally spot on, the best tactic. So just because it's chaos or looks like chaos, like your dance isn't as nice and flowy as maybe what I would do, that doesn't mean learning's not happening. And I think that's what I've learned over 30 years. I started in a world where teacher education was more about the experience and like what activity you're going to do and how nice your bulletin board was going to be, and less focused on the standard. And I've had to learn to say, well, that was a really nice activity, but I didn't teach them anything. I didn't have any target. I didn't know where I was going. Where now we focus on the target. And I think the other part is the experience and learning from good conditions in the classroom. They all don't have to be like I do it, but they have to have an intended outcome. And I think what Amanda gave you there with the slide, the next slide, is so important. It's like, again, it doesn't have to be a clean dance, but you got to be organizing your classroom to reach that outcome. What's the outcome is, and how are you organizing your classroom? I think that Champ's guide is really good, because that was my failure as a young teacher. I didn't have those procedures down to know, like, this is how we line up. This is how you hand in paper. This is how we communicate with each other. It's how you ask questions. They seem very trivial, but once you get those down, your classroom just works like a clock. It just works so smoothly. So
Yes, yes.
I'll just add a little bit. The part that I love that Dr. Fastnacht said there is it doesn't have to look the same. So if you go back to the slide that has the framework, that's the beauty of the framework, is it gives the educator and the evaluator common language. So if you go into a classroom and it's chaotic, you're going to be looking at those elements that the educator already saw the rubric and the standards and what they were trying to do. And as the evaluator, you're looking for skills and strategies. And then there's that conversation that Jeff alluded to of, I'm looking at E18 there, using engagement strategies. My question, if I didn't feel like as an evaluator I was seeing that, would be, can you tell me what engagement strategies you're using? And we would already have a common language that doesn't feel personal. And it's not about my teaching style as an evaluator, it's about the educator making intentional decisions. So if they can explain why the noise level was high, if they can explain the new strategy they were using, if they can tell me why kids were going to be doing a certain thing because the outcome was coming, then that's intentional, that's expertise. Whereas without this common language, we tend to try to get people to teach like we taught, which actually is not growing the art side of education. And so this platform gives both the evaluator and the educator the opportunity to communicate the instructional decisions that they're making. And then you'll look at the Lucia, planning to close the achievement gap. It's in blue there. That's where the rubber hits the road, right? You can say I'm using this strategy and this is my reason and I made these really intentional decisions, but then we're still at the end of the day looking at, did it work for kids? And we can't
Yes.
argue about that. We can look at the data and logically say, are kids learning or not? And if not, that's okay. Then we dive back in and say, okay, what other strategies are we going to use to get the results that we're looking for?
What are you going to do differently next time?
Yep.
Yes. So we talked during the months in the fall, we talk about formative assessment. And I told them how important it is to keep constantly in the same way that when Jeff mentioned, they cannot be surprises when you are evaluating a teacher like, ta-da, you're fired. We can do that with the kids, right? We cannot say at the end of the school year, oh, you didn't learn anything. It cannot be a surprise. Can you talk a little bit about what is your expectation in formative assessment? Because the teachers in Ukraine told me, well, how do you keep all that data? And I said, well, it doesn't have to be all the time numbers, right? There's obviously numbers you have to keep, but how important it is to keep observing your students in order to see, okay, my flexible groups have to change, or tell us a little bit more about that.
You could do that simply. I mean, we could do a formative assessment right now just by everybody gives me, we're doing all right for you, we're kind of doing it, or we're not doing it for you. And everybody could give their signal, and that's formative assessment for me as a teacher. It doesn't have to be so formal. Maybe it's an exit ticket or things of that nature. We can do something simple as that, or it could be probably much more complicated, and I'll let Amanda talk to that. But it's just about that feedback loop again between me and my students, and understanding if I've hit them where they need to be to learn that day.
Yeah, give them opportunity to express their voice in how am I. But then, Jeff, the important part is creating a safe environment that the students are actually, because when you said, oh, did you like it or did you get it? And they all say yes, but how do you make sure that they are actually getting it?
You might have to check them. You might have to check them, because I noticed nobody voted, so we're not safe enough yet. Nobody voted like this really is bad. So, you have to create an environment where you're okay doing that and you trust that they're giving you accurate feedback.
Yes. So Amanda, tell us a little bit more okay, we get like thumbs up, thumbs down. If you're not getting it, you're liking it. But when we go a little bit more in depth into formative assessment, what is your expectation? What do you like to see in the classrooms?
So when a teacher has a great handle on formative assessment, it's layered. So like Dr. Fastnacht said, it's that everyday teacher moves that you make that often we don't even know we are doing formative assessment. And then it's that next layer of the intentional formative. Is it that one question content check? Is it the dipping down and making sure that you know that they're moving along with you? And then there's that third layer of common formative. So if you are with another group of teachers and you're trying to stay on pacing, or you're trying to make sure that kids are mastering, you might be taking, after 7 days of instruction, you're all giving the same formative, and then you're bringing that to your PLC or whatever your guys' structure is. I apologize if that looks different. And then you're saying, okay, I kind of had a sense every day because I'm with them, and I did some dipsticks along the way and I was feeling really good. But then when I gave this CFA, my kids are only getting 2 out of 3 concepts. How did you teach it? How did I teach it? What are we going to go back and reteach? And then it's just that constant evolution. So there's really 3 layers of formative assessment. And then within each layer, there's a plethora of strategies. So Jeff gave the real quick, thumbs up, the turn and talk, the whiteboarding, and then the actual structured of written response or solving for a certain skill that you're seeing if they master. But formative assessment could even be a rough draft of a writing piece that you're trying to
Yes.
teach them through. Okay, now we're going to teach them the revision cycle, and then we're going to take another little formative sample. I think often, and I'm guilty of this, as Jeff alluded to, we all are growing as educators. I often jump to the summative. Like I would teach, I would think they were ready, and I'd want to give the test to find out. And I think that if we can get better at living in the formative and really understanding mastery and giving kids as long to learn in that progression as possible, then that summative actually drives more information than if we rush, we teach 2 or 3 days and then we try to give them that final summative and move on. Formative
Yes.
assessment is probably the most beautiful thing that's come out of educational research in the last 20 years, but it's a big, big understanding to unpack, especially if you're coming from the learn it, test environment.
Yes.
You said this before, because again, when I was eavesdropping on you, Lucia, before we tuned in, or right when you tuned in, you talked about that trusting relationship with your colleagues, right?
Yes.
So as
Yes.
Amanda talks about taking that formative assessment, maybe common formative assessment, and then meeting with all the rest of my 5th grade teachers, because I was a 5th grade teacher, and looking at data, a lot of times I talk to Gloria and we talk about, well, what's in the news? What'd you do last night? What'd you have for supper? How's your husband? How's the children? We talk about those things because they're important. But when you get into the academics setting, do we have enough trust to say, well, you got this output for your kids. They were 10 points better than mine. What did you do that I
Yes.
didn't do that maybe I need to learn from? And then when you do that as teachers, you're both colleagues helping each other get better, but you got to have that relationship to do that.
Yes. Yes. And when there are 5 teachers teaching the same thing, well, why not benefit from each other? I mean, each one of us has different skills. And I love the fact that when there's that trust, we all grow together, right? We learn from each other. And Amanda and Jeff, now I want you to tell me, well, there has been the teacher setting the standard, the teachers setting the engagement strategies, the procedures. When do we flip that the student own their job in that formative assessment process? How can we flip the script and make the student own in that editing? Let's return to that rough draft. How do we make the student own their job? And it's not me, you have an 8 or you have an A, or how can we make them reflect? We reflect as teachers. How do we instill that reflecting process?
That's a great question. So we use something here, which is also part of Marzano's research called scales or rubrics. So I don't know if there's language that's familiar there, but when we start a unit of instruction, we tell the kids, this is what mastery looks like. And then we show them almost in a ladder of here's what you're going to learn first, here's what you need to learn next, here's what mastery looks like, and here's what you can do to extend your learning. Similar to how Dr. Fastnacht said that our evaluation, that's the same concept of developing, applying, innovating. So kids know before they even start on that learning journey where they're headed. And then with formative assessment, they self-track. So I have a 5th grade daughter, and she can come home and her language will be so specific. I am a 3 on multiplying fractions because I know that I can use common denominators, but I'm not a 4 yet because I don't know what to do when the denominators aren't the same. And
Right.
so it gives them, again, back to language, so sorry to be a broken record, but it gives the kids the language to be able to say to the teacher, I'm this because I know this, so I'm not here yet because I don't know this. And then formative assessment is what drives that ongoing conversation between educator and teacher.
Yes. Very, very good. And here I just put an example. It doesn't have to be fancy, but
Mhm.
here is very specific saying, in order for you to exceed expectations, I have to see this. And this is like, no, you are a novice. It's messy. You're not prepared. So it has to be very specific for the students to realize and be able to self-identify. Oh, I'm a one because right, and have that type of conversation with our students. Um, very, very good. Jeff, anything you want to add in that regard? Uh,
No,
making the
I think
students.
that's good for all of us. I think we as adults want that. I don't know why it took so long for us to do that for kids. We all like to know, like, what's the expectation,
Yes.
right? We crave that as adults. Like, just tell me what you need me to do. And it just took us a long time to get to the point where we do that with kids ahead of time. At the beginning, we always kind of said, well, just do it and then we'll grade it and we'll give you the points. It's like, I I have to get all of them right. I don't know. Like, it's that, no, just help me understand what I need to know to be a not even a master. I just have to meet the standard. So I'm ready to move forward.
Yes.
With the picture that you have on the screen there, Lucia, I think the important part there is this work isn't possible until you do the PLC work, until you unpack the standard. And as an educator, you have a really good sense of what are the levels of mastery that I'm trying to get kids to. And that work often is missed. Sometimes we try to figure out what mastery is in isolation, but that's where that trust comes back to. If you're going to see a standard um, multiply by double digits,
Mhm.
okay, we all know ourselves what that means, but have we actually done the work to think about what are all the little mini skills, micro skills that kids need to get mastery? And that's where you build the rubric or the scale. But
Yeah.
you need your colleagues, you need a collaborative effort to unpack the amount of standards that we're all responsible for teaching kids.
Yes. And when we're talking here about teaching a second language, when you give the students, you have a 7, you have an 8, that doesn't mean anything if you don't really explain, like the rubric is explaining. This is where you are, and these are the specifics that you need to polish and improve in order to grow. What I have found in teaching English as a second language, when you grade the paper, you teacher in your house, and you just give the paper to the student, and it has the grade and the comments, they don't even read the comments. They just look at the grade and I'm failing. But when you talk to the students, and you don't give them the grade, you just give the comments. And so tell me where you are in relationship with the rubric. You make them reflect, right? And so that's what I'm talking about, the importance of owning the students in the process.
This is a
Very, very
different
good.
strategy. This is a different strategy, but also I think worth sharing is error analysis. So we use scales to help kids see, but
Uh,
another really successful strategy in having kids own their learning is having them look at problems that have errors in them or looking at their
ooh,
own work that has errors and they become the grader or they become the
yes,
teacher and they're looking for where's the thinking error? What went wrong here? And then they
yeah.
explain why something went wrong. That's a really high level strategy to turn the ownership over to them.
Yeah. I always tell them, oh, you're gonna be detectives. You're gonna find the mystery and solve the mystery. I don't know why even high schoolers they like that word. It's
Yep.
very, very interesting. Very, very cool. Well, I don't know. Should we make a stop here and see if we have questions? I would like to hear everybody opinions. We have 51 people and there's just 3 talking. So we're going to make a stop here. And I would like to hear everybody to tell me what are the questions, because I'm crossing my fingers that you have questions. This chance of having these 2 amazing professionals in the education field, we don't have it every day. So take the chat and please write your questions. Hello. Oh, oh. We're here.
Yeah,
Oh,
I have a
ding, we have
question.
one.
Yeah, I have a question. So I see that this rubric was created, yeah, so at least it was written in the handwriting of the pupils. So do they collaborate with you on creating like this criteria, or just do they need to rewrite what is said by you? Because I'm interested in that.
Well, in this case, Amanda, you can jump here.
No, that's a great question. We have something called student-friendly scales. And so we have the scales written in adult language, and then we do work with the kids to put it in language that makes sense to them. I wouldn't say that we always put it in their own handwriting, but the teachers would create something like this that you're seeing on the screen with the kids at the start of a unit so that they could see and have it in language that makes sense to them. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? It's now or never. I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm going to wait for your questions. What about evaluation? I'm
So
always
maybe,
interested.
maybe, Lucia, if possible, not so much of a question, but just a kind of a comment.
Okay.
Here in Ukraine, maybe my colleagues will argue with me. I will be talking about the academic context I was working at, and that was a university. Frankly, I have never worked at school, but just the what our universities lack is that feedback-driven culture on all the levels. The thing is that on the one hand, we as teachers are not taught, are not trained, and are not used to giving constructive feedback to students. We can find a lot of reasons, a lot of whys behind that. We lack time, we are overloaded, we have something else, and something else. As a result, our students also are not used to giving us feedback. And the only thing they can say is, I liked it or I don't like it, but they very, very rarely say, I don't like it, just because they are afraid of saying this. So what we need to do is we need to get used to this feedback driven culture in relationship within between the teachers and students. I can't even imagine that our school children, again, maybe my colleagues from the school setting will correct me, but I can't imagine Ukrainian kids giving feedback and being used to use rubrics and even knowing that rubrics exist and there should be criteria according to which they can evaluate their teacher. On the other hand, another very, very big problem is what we call teacher observation. This is evaluation of teachers by the heads of departments, by senior management, by colleagues, by peers. You see, very, very often, I used to have the department myself, and I just used to have a lot of training in classroom observation and giving feedback to colleagues, but frankly, my efforts were spent in vain. A lot of colleagues, especially those who are my age or my experience level, they are very much reluctant to listen to some kind of feedback. I'm not talking about criticism. I'm not talking about critique. I'm just talking about the feedback. And I was trying my best to follow some of the rules, to meet with the teacher before I go to observe him or her, to just discuss with him some of the things, then to meet after the lesson, and not to say, you should have done this, why didn't you do this? This is the only way to do this. I was trying just to listen from them what they think of what went okay, what went wrong. I was trying to make suggestions in the form of questions, so a lot of things. It appeared not to work just because people are not ready. Novice teachers listen and they take everything, for example, I say they take everything for granted. And they also are not taught to think critically of what the senior teacher says. And even if they did a lot of wonderful things, if I, as the department head, say something, well, they will think, oh, yes, you're right, I did that wrong. So there is, I think each of you have witnessed this kind of situation not once. And just your session is very much valuable. Believe me, just because we have seen how things can be arranged. In your case, at school, we can just transfer to the university context, right? But so that it could work, we need a couple of things. On the one hand, we need very thorough training in providing feedback and teacher evaluation and in teacher observation. On the other hand, the management, the university management should also be trained to provide all this, because very often they turn absolutely deaf ear to what we are saying, and we as teachers know it from the bottom. They look at it from the top, and this is where we can't meet even halfway. That's the point. And one more thing. Recently, at least the university where I used to work until this September last year, well, teacher evaluation became part of signing the contract with the teacher. So just if I'm going to sign a contract, I will have to present the notice from the special bureau, from the special body, which is responsible for quality assurance at the university. And at the end of each semester, they at the end of each course, they launch the feedback form. But where students evaluate teachers, and then the results are used as one of the criteria for signing the contract with you or not signing, or signing for how long, for a year, for two. Well, just I see some are nodding, especially heads of the department. They know how painful this usually is. Well, the quality of the questions that university management imposes is something that 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 has a lot of gaps, I would say. Well, the things students have to assess or to evaluate, sorry, are not the things they have to evaluate. At least in those feedback forms that were used to administer this kind of evaluation at our university, there were no questions about what students have learned, how they have learned, what they liked, what they didn't like, just nothing about how they would like learning to be improved. Well, just kind of these things. And in fact, I know that it's not the responsibility of an ordinary teacher or even an ordinary department head, but this should be something that has to be solved at the not only at the institutional level, but maybe perhaps at the national level. And this is the issue that is to be addressed. And thank you very much for giving so much food for thought and so much thoughtful food for thought, I would say. Well, just because you tuned us to looking at something we're not very much used to. Just because very often feedback to students, oh, well done, oh, sorry, you failed. But it's not constructive either. It's just
No.
something that doesn't work. And that concept of assessment for learning, which is about formative assessment, is something that doesn't work. We still very often stop at the level of assessment of learning, forgetting that assessment for learning and assessment as learning are not less important and even much more important than
Absolutely.
assessment of learning. Just because those
Yeah.
high stakes exams students take at the end of the course do not contribute much to their progress and do not inform our teaching much.
Yeah.
Sorry for a long talk.
No, that's fine. Gana, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I absolutely, that absolutely resonates with everything Ludmila has just said. And well, I just want to follow up and probably quickly debrief everything that has been said today. Thank you very much for a very empowering and really comprehensive session today on assessment. Assessment and evaluation have always been a thorny issue in education, right? Thorny issue for all of us, because we're always, as educators, we're dragged between formative and summative assessment to meet the standards, right? To correspond to this high stakes demands, right? High stakes standards, right? And tests. To show this results that meet the formal standards, right, which is about assessment of learning, as Ludmila says, and quite often that disadvantages greatly the student needs and great things like assessment for learning or assessment as learning are left behind, and the teacher is simply torn between these two different worlds that never meet. And unfortunately, what it results, right, what it evolves into, and that's probably something that comes from our, unfortunately, Soviet past, that we're accustomed and we're learned to criticize more than to focus and highlight positive aspects, and in such way to light up the motivation, further motivation in a student. And that's resonates and that comes back with vengeance when they do this feedback. I mean, students, when they do this feedback forms at the end of the term. And that is the fact, and that is the argument, and that is the reason what teachers criticize those feedback forms for, that students concentrate on negative aspects. Okay, so what do? They do the same what teachers do to them, right? So when we assess, when we provide teachers, when they provide the feedback, they mostly concentrate on the negative aspects, but not on the positive aspects. So there is no based methodological philosophy and culture of evaluation and assessment. And it's a two-way street. So originally it is initiated by the teacher, and then it bounces back as a feedback form. Also, that reveals mostly negative aspects about teaching and learning, under privileging the positive aspects about that. And this is what teachers say, that why do students concentrate all the time on the negative aspects? Why don't they say about positive practices about that? So that is all, that all starts definitely at administrative level, right? At the level of summative assessment planning. And then it evolves in all these miscommunications and misunderstandings, and unfortunately into serious things like, for example, discontinuing the contract with the specific teacher. And that's a really sad thing, because quite often we have to discontinue this contract with very good teachers that were just trapped into this administrative,
I
like
hear you, Gana.
requirements. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so
Jeff, you
that's
wanted
the
to say
problem. That's the
something.
problem.
Thank you.
I was just going to ask Gana, is that right? Gana? And even this has to be, you said it was from some of your culture, from some of the background, your Russian heritage. You think does this coaching challenge this negative, focus on the negative, is it societal? If I was a banker, would I be in the same thing? What if I was worked in an office? Would I have the same culture? It's almost it's a societal thing as much as it is just an education thing.
Well, that could be both. This is what we're working on right now. So we're trying to work out this balance, this idea of organic relationship between a student and a teacher, that we're not opposing parts. We're all working together towards one and the same goal, towards effective learning. So that's where formative and summative assessment come together, right? So there are always standards, high standards that need to be made. Otherwise, the whole educational process is going to be a chaotic classroom, right? So we need high standards on the one hand. On the other hand, there are student needs, and our students feel the pulse of the time. And we also need to take into account what they need, what they're looking for, what is something that interests them, what they find motivating and encouraging. And that's where formative assessment comes at hand. This is what Ludmila says, assessment for learning and assessment as learning. So that's all two-way street. I call myself.
But what if, Gana?
So much of that is culture, because I think what you are portraying, when I started teaching, I was about finding the errors. I found what's wrong. I talked about what's wrong. I mean, I only have to go back 30 years in teaching, and it's like, it was about finding the errors and checking the box, like wrong, wrong, wrong. That's how I was brought up in school. And it's just culturally, and I think even outside of education, it's changing in America a little bit, maybe to the negative. I don't think so, but to say we're doing it together, as you said, we're learning together, we're asking questions. It's about mutual growth, not necessarily, my job is not just to identify what you made a mistake in. That's not my job. It's part of my job. It's not all my job. Yeah, you said that very well.
And what if, this is a question for all of you, if that is a culture, who are we waiting to change it? What we don't start ourselves. Remember that in our conversations, I said, when I start in a new school, the first two questions, who is my appraiser and where is the rubric? And I post it beside my computer and I look at it every day. This is what they said matters. This is what I should be doing. And this is what I'm doing it. And as Jeff says, she knows me, and Amanda as well. I'm very competitive. I want to get the 100 and I want to provide the best for my students. But starting to know our students, to create deep relationships, personal relationship, where it's like a checking account. I cannot make a check if I didn't make any deposit. So deposit in your students. So when you give the feedback, they are ready to get it. In the same way, make deposits in your supervisor, in your colleagues. You change the norm, the society. We are 50 people here. So start the change in Ukraine. If you don't have what you want, make it happen.
Lucia, I love that. I think we're really getting to an introspection conversation here, and I really appreciate both ladies for kicking that off. We all got educated a certain way, and so as educators, we're grappling with our own experiences and then what do we believe is best for kids. And I think that's where we're living right now is organizational norms, how we experienced it, what's acceptable, and then maybe our own personal beliefs. And I think the more we can lean into what did I want as a learner? What did you want? When you were a 5-year-old in the classroom, what did you wish the teacher would have done? And I bet if you think about that long enough, you wanted clear expectations, feedback. You wanted to have a good sense. You wanted to know that you were safe and welcome in that classroom. And that's the crossroad that we're at. And sometimes organizational change doesn't catch up with the human side as fast as we want it to, but we can do that. We can look in and say, how are we going to show up for kids today? And eventually that momentum will force system change. And I was at a school for 6 years, and I can tell you firsthand the beliefs the day that I walked in to the beliefs the day I walked out had to do more about the changing of hearts of adults than it did about any of the systems that were in place. And so you are the change. You just have to start where you have some control right now instead of looking so far out on the horizon and saying, when's the eval tool going to change? When's the requirements for policy going to change? When's the money coming? We want to be influenced in that, but we're going to make much more influence in front of kids in our classrooms if we look at what we believe is best for kids in education. So thank you for this really important conversation. I can hear that grappling, and I can see some of your faces like, yeah, but the system, no, you are an educator and you make a difference every day.
Yeah, Amanda, thank you very much. Thank you. That is a great feedback. And you know, I've recently read from someone, I don't know exactly whose words are these, but a professional is a person who should not necessarily know everything, but who never stops to be surprised. Okay, so
Mhm.
so
Yes.
you should not be surprised by anything or with anything. So you should be open and learn from your experience and the experience of others. So that's probably the best way to develop and to evolve.
Well, I will tell you, I walked away from the last time I met with Elena and Lucia. I learned just as much from that interaction than I think I helped that day teaching your students, because it was like just enlightening to hear that. What I will tell you, what my takeaway last time, and this just reinforces it again, is you were all giving all your heart and soul to kids in the Ukraine when, no offense, you have so many other bigger issues going on than we have over here. I mean,
Yes.
everybody in the world knows the USA is in chaos. We're not anything compared to what you are doing, but you're still showing up for kids. You got my vote every day. If you want to come teach, come over. I'll take you right now. You're hired. So, and my evaluation's much better, so I will evaluate you better too.
Okay, dear colleagues, American friends, and TESOL-Ukraine, just on behalf of all our TESOL-Ukraine community, I would like to thank all the three of you. Lucia for inviting Dr. Jeff and Amanda to speak up. Dr. Jeff Fastnacht and Amanda, you for your just very, very valuable things.